The Amulet of Eternity. Part 1, The Whisper of Destiny. Beneath the fiery hues of a setting sun, the village of Thornwhistle nestled in a tranquil valley surrounded by dense, whispering forests. It was a humble place, forgotten by kings and conquerors, where days passed uneventfully, and the people lived by the rhythm of the seasons. But amidst the villagers, there was one soul destined to break the mold, Kyle Farrow, a scrappy, curious young man with unruly black hair, a leather satchel filled with dusty books, and dreams bigger than the hills surrounding Thornwhistle. Kyle was a map maker by trade and an explorer by heart. His dreams were woven with threads of ancient legends and forbidden realms. By candlelight, he pored over accounts of lost cities, enchanted artifacts, and heroes whose names were immortalized in song. Yet, he had never ventured far from his own home, until the day he discovered the old parchment. While sorting through the forgotten remnants of a dilapidated library in Thornwhistle, Kyle stumbled upon a weathered scroll. The ink was faded, but the intricate illustrations of an amulet shaped like a phoenix caught his eye. Beneath the illustration were the words, "The Amulet of Eternity, a key to realms beyond time, hidden within the tomb of Everfall." The scroll detailed a treacherous journey to a forgotten desert far across the continent. The amulet, it claimed, could grant its bearer unimaginable power, or terrible doom. Kyle's heart raced. This was the adventure he had been waiting for. A call to adventure. Kyle's preparations were swift and meticulous. He packed rations, ropes, a compass, and his most trusted belongings. But just as he was about to leave, a knock came at his door. It was Elira, the village apothecary, and Kyle's closest friend. Elira had fiery red hair, a quick wit, and an uncanny knack for healing magic, though she rarely displayed her skills openly. "You're leaving," she stated, folding her arms. "What foolish thing have you gotten yourself into this time?" Kyle hesitated but handed her the parchment. Her emerald eyes scanned the scroll, her brow furrowing. "The tomb of Everfall. Do you have any idea how dangerous this is?" "Exactly why I need to go," Kyle replied, his voice brimming with excitement. "Imagine what's out there, Elira. Ancient secrets, lost history, magic. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. You could also die," she shot back. "You're not even trained for this. At least, let me come with you." Kyle started to protest but realized there was no point. Elira was as stubborn as she was skilled. And deep down, he was relieved. Her knowledge of plants, potions, and survival might just keep him alive. The magical obstacle. The journey to the tomb of Everfall was long and perilous. The first leg of their adventure led them through the Whispering Woods, a forest notorious for its strange happenings. The air was thick with the hum of unseen creatures, and the ancient trees seemed alive, shifting ever so slightly when no one was looking. On the third night, as they camped beneath the twisted boughs of an ancient oak, a chilling voice echoed through the clearing. "Why do you disturb my forest?" Kyle and Elira sprang to their feet, weapons drawn. From the shadows emerged a peculiar figure, a wraith-like creature cloaked in flowing black, its eyes glowing like embers. It was a forest sentinel, a guardian of ancient magic. "We mean no harm," Kyle said quickly, holding up his hands. "We're on a journey to..." "Silence," the sentinel roared. "No mortal passes through my domain without tribute." Kyle looked at Elira, panic creeping into his voice. "Tribute? What do we have?" Elira rummaged through her satchel and pulled out a small vial of glowing blue liquid. It was a rare elixir she had crafted, rumored to restore vitality and extend life. She held it out to the sentinel, whose burning eyes narrowed. "This will suffice," the creature hissed, snatching the vial. "But beware, travelers. The path ahead is fraught with darkness. Only those of true heart may claim what they seek." The sentinel vanished into the night, leaving Kyle and Elira shaken but unharmed. The magical helper. Days later, the pair reached the edge of the Whispering Woods and entered the vast, arid desert beyond. The heat was merciless, and their supplies dwindled quickly. But hope came in an unexpected form. As they trudged through the sand dunes, a shadow passed overhead. Looking up, they saw a massive bird, larger than any eagle or hawk they had ever seen. It circled once before landing in front of them, its feathers shimmering like molten gold. Strapped to its leg was a small scroll. Kyle untied the scroll and read aloud, "Traveler, I am Orob, keeper of the Mill of the Three Winds. I sense your journey and offer you aid. My companion, Orion, will guide you through the desert. Trust him." The bird, Orion, caught softly and nudged Kyle's shoulder with its beak. Elira raised an eyebrow. "A giant magical bird. That's your helper." "Don't question it," Kyle said, smiling for the first time in days. "Let's follow him." Orion proved invaluable, leading them to hidden oases and shielding them from sandstorms with its powerful wings. But as they neared their destination, a new shadow loomed on the horizon. The danger revealed. A group of riders clad in black emerged from the dunes. Their leader, a cold and calculating sorceress named Zalith, had eyes like ice and a voice that dripped venom. She reined in her horse and smirked at Kyle and Elira. "You seek the Amulet of Eternity," Zalith said. "How quaint. It belongs to me, as it always has." "You'll have to fight us for it," Kyle said, trying to sound braver than he felt. Zalith laughed, raising a hand. The sand around her began to swirl, forming monstrous shapes that lunged toward the pair. Elira shouted an incantation, summoning a barrier of light, while Orion dove into the fray, his golden feathers cutting through the shadows. Kyle's heart pounded as he realized this was only the beginning of their struggle. The amulet was close, but so was the enemy who would stop at nothing to claim it. Part 2, The Tomb of Everfall. The scorching sun had just begun to dip below the horizon as Kyle, Elira, and their winged guide Orion reached the edge of a rocky canyon. The sands shifted under their boots as they stared down into the chasm below. Hidden within the jagged depths was the Tomb of Everfall, a place whispered of in legend but seen by no living soul in centuries. "We're close," Kyle murmured, clutching the ancient parchment that had led them this far. He traced the map with his finger, sweat dripping from his brow. "The entrance should be just ahead, through that pass." Orion squawked and flapped his great wings, soaring ahead as if urging them onward. Elira tightened the strap of her satchel and adjusted her dagger. "Let's move quickly. Zalith and her riders won't be far behind." The descent. The tomb's entrance was hidden beneath a curtain of vines and jagged rocks. After an hour of searching, Orion let out a triumphant cry, circling a crumbling stone archway carved with ancient runes. The pair approached cautiously, marveling at the intricate carvings of phoenixes, serpents, and rising flames. "This is it," Kyle whispered, running his hand over the cold stone. The Tomb of Everfall. With a collective breath, they stepped inside. The air grew colder, and the faint glow of bioluminescent fungi illuminated the passage. The tunnel sloped downward, the silence broken only by the soft drip of water and their echoing footsteps. But soon, the way forward was blocked by a massive stone door. Carved into its surface was a riddle. "To pass this gate, one must show the fire of the heart. Prove your worth, or perish in the dark. Kyle frowned, staring at the riddle. Fire of the heart. What does that mean? Elira produced a vial of glowing red liquid from her satchel. I think it means this. Your fire tonic. Kyle asked, astonished. You've been saving that for emergencies. This feels like one, she replied, pouring a drop onto the center of the door. As the liquid touched the stone, it flared brightly, and the door groaned open, revealing a vast chamber beyond. Trials of the Tomb. The chamber was unlike anything they had ever seen. Pillars rose high into the darkness, each adorned with golden inscriptions and jewels that sparkled in the dim light. At the center stood a pedestal, and upon it rested the Amulet of Eternity, a phoenix-shaped artifact glowing faintly with an inner fire. Kyle's heart leapt, but Elira grabbed his arm. Wait. It can't be this easy. Her instincts proved correct. As Kyle stepped closer, the ground beneath his feet shifted, and a series of traps activated. Blades shot from the walls, the floor gave way to fiery pits, and arrows whizzed through the air. Orion! Kyle shouted. The golden bird swooped down, grabbing Kyle's cloak in its talons and lifting him out of harm's way. Elira ducked and rolled, her agility keeping her just ahead of the deadly traps. The chamber reset as they reached the pedestal, leaving the room eerily still. Kyle reached for the amulet, but Elira stopped him again. This is the real test. Look. She pointed to an inscription on the pedestal. The heart that claims the amulet must hold balance, strength, compassion, and wisdom. Fail, and the fire shall consume you. Kyle hesitated. His hands trembled as he reached out. The moment his fingers brushed the amulet, it flared with blinding light. Images flooded his mind, ancient wars, heroes both triumphant and fallen, and the amulet's destructive potential in the wrong hands. Kyle, focus. Elira called, her voice distant through the roaring magic. Kyle closed his eyes, calming his racing heart. I don't seek power, he murmured. I seek knowledge, and to protect it. The light dimmed. The amulet rested in his hands, warm but no longer threatening. Zalitha's arrival. Their triumph was short-lived. As they turned to leave, the chamber trembled. From the shadows emerged Zalith, flanked by her riders. Her ice-blue eyes gleamed as she took in the scene. Well done, boy, she said, her voice as sharp as a blade. You saved me the trouble of retrieving it myself. Now hand it over. Kyle stepped back, clutching the amulet. You'll have to kill me first. That can be arranged, Zalith sneered. She raised her hands, and dark energy crackled between her fingers. The chamber filled with shadowy tendrils that lashed out toward Kyle and Elira. Orion dived to protect them, but Zalitha's magic was strong. The golden bird screeched in pain as a shadowy bolt struck its wing, sending it crashing to the ground. Enough of this, Elira growled, pulling a flask from her belt. She hurled it at Zalith, and the flask exploded in a burst of blinding light. The sorceress recoiled, her magic faltering. Run! Elira shouted, grabbing Kyle's arm. They sprinted toward the tunnel, dodging Zalitha's magic and her riders' arrows. The tomb began to collapse, the ancient structure unable to withstand the unleashed power. The escape. Orion, injured but determined, rose to his feet and followed. The trio emerged from the tomb just as it caved in, the entrance sealed beneath tons of rubble. They stood in silence, catching their breath. The sun was rising, casting golden light over the desert. Kyle held the amulet tightly, its glow matching the dawn. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. Elira gave him a weary smile. "For now. But Zalith won't stop hunting us." Kyle nodded, gazing at the horizon. The amulet felt heavy in his hands, not just in weight but in responsibility. Their journey was far from over. Part 3, The Rise of Shadows. The morning sun climbed higher over the desert, illuminating the shattered remains of the tomb of Everfall. Kyle, Elira, and Orion stood on the windswept dunes, catching their breath. Though they had escaped with the Amulet of Eternity, the battle was far from over. The warm glow of the phoenix-shaped artifact in Kyle's hands was a stark contrast to the cold fear lingering in his heart. "She'll come for us," Elira said, brushing sand from her tunic. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a deep worry. "Zalith won't let the amulet slip through her fingers." Kyle tightened his grip on the amulet, its warmth pulsing like a heartbeat. "Then we'll be ready. We need to figure out how to use this before she does." Orion caught softly, limping slightly as he spread his great golden wings. Kyle placed a hand on the bird's neck, feeling the creature's steady determination. Orion agrees. There's no turning back now. A new ally. Their journey took them north, toward the distant cliffs of Valmer, where the ruins of an ancient mage city were said to hold the secrets of the amulet. As they approached a narrow pass between the cliffs, Kyle noticed something strange, a flickering light ahead, like a beacon in the dark. "Stay alert," Elira whispered, her hand resting on the hilt of her dagger. As they drew closer, they found the source of the light, a campfire, and seated beside it was an elderly man with a staff carved from twisted wood. His robes were tattered, but his eyes gleamed with youthful mischief. "Ah, travelers," the man said, rising slowly. "You've come far, and with an artifact of great power, no less." Kyle's hand instinctively moved to the amulet. "Who are you?" The man smiled. "A friend, if you'll have me. I am Marin, a scholar of the old magics. The amulet you carry is no mere trinket, it is a key to the veil, the boundary between worlds." "The veil?" Elira asked, raising an eyebrow. Marin nodded, gesturing for them to sit by the fire. "The veil separates our world from realms of immense power. Long ago, the Amulet of Eternity was created to channel that power, but it comes at a cost. Only one of true heart can wield it without succumbing to its corruption." Kyle exchanged a glance with Elira. "How do we use it?" Marin's expression grew serious. "The amulet must be awakened at the Pillar of Light, an ancient site hidden deep within the cliffs of Valmer. But beware, awakening its full power will draw every dark force in existence toward you." Kyle took a deep breath. "We don't have a choice. Zalith will never stop until she gets this." Marin placed a hand on Kyle's shoulder. "Then I will guide you. But the journey will not be easy. The antagonist strikes." The cliffs of Valmer were treacherous, with jagged paths and crumbling ledges. As they climbed higher, the air grew colder, and an unnatural fog settled around them. Marin led the way, his staff glowing faintly to light their path. But as they neared the summit, a deafening roar echoed through the cliffs. Dark figures emerged from the mist, Zalitha's riders, their eyes glowing with the same icy fire as their mistress. "Go!" Marin shouted, slamming his staff into the ground. A wave of light surged outward, knocking back the first wave of riders. "I'll hold them off." Kyle hesitated, but Elira grabbed his arm. "We have to trust him." With Orion flying above, they raced toward the peak, where a massive stone pillar pierced the sky. The pillar of light was surrounded by runes glowing faintly in the fog, and at its base was a pedestal shaped to hold the amulet. Kyle rushed forward, placing the amulet into the pedestal. The runes flared to life, and the pillar began to hum with energy. But before the process could complete, a blast of dark magic shattered the air. Zalith appeared, her cloak billowing as she descended from the fog, her hands wreathed in shadow. "Fools," she sneered. "Did you really think you could stop me?" The final confrontation. The ground trembled as Zalith unleashed her power, tendrils of darkness surging toward Kyle and Elira. Orion dove to intercept, his golden feathers glowing as he clashed with the dark magic. Elira stepped forward, drawing her dagger. "You'll have to go through me first." Zalith smirked, her voice dripping with mockery. "A brave little apothecary. Let's see how long you last." Kyle, meanwhile, focused on the amulet. He placed his hands on the pedestal, feeling its power surge through him. Visions of fire and light filled his mind, and he heard a voice, a whisper from the amulet itself. "Choose your path, Kyle Pharaoh. Will you wield the light for creation, or destruction?" "Creation," Kyle whispered. "Always." The amulet flared, and a wave of golden fire erupted from the pillar, forcing Zalith back. But she wasn't done yet. Snarling, she drew a jagged black blade and charged toward Kyle. Elira blocked her path, parrying the blade with her dagger. The two women clashed fiercely, the sparks of their battle lighting up the foggy peak. Kyle, still connected to the amulet, felt its energy building to a breaking point. He glanced at Orion, who nodded as if understanding. "It's now or never," Kyle murmured. The element of surprise. Just as Zalith gained the upper hand, Elira shouted, "Kyle, now!" Kyle released the amulet's power, and a blinding column of light erupted from the pillar, piercing the heavens. The energy washed over the peak, dissolving Zalith's magic and scattering her riders. The sorceress screamed as the light engulfed her, her form fading into the mist. When the light dimmed, Kyle collapsed to his knees, the amulet now cool and lifeless in his hands. The pillar of light stood silent, its task complete. Elira rushed to his side, helping him up. "You did it." Kyle looked at her, exhaustion in his eyes. "We did it." Orion landed beside them, folding his wings with a triumphant caw. Mayorin appeared moments later, his robe singed but his smile intact. "You've done well, Kyle Pharaoh. The amulet's power is safe, for now." The wisdom at the end. As they descended the cliffs, Kyle reflected on their journey. The amulet had shown him the weight of power and the importance of responsibility. "The greatest power," he said quietly, "is knowing when not to use it." Elira smiled. "And the greatest strength is knowing you don't have to face it alone." Orion caught in agreement, his golden feathers catching the morning sun. Together, the trio walked toward the horizon, their bond forged in the fires of adventure and the light of a new dawn. The end.